Well, I'm Jonathan Worsley, Chairman of the Bench, and I'm delighted to have Susie Ellis here with me. Susie is Chairman and CEO of the non-for-profit Global Wellness Institute, and of course, Chairman and CEO of the Global Wellness Summit as well. Susie, delighted to have you with us and delighted that you're participating in the Future Hospitality Summit.
I'm very much looking forward to it. Thank you for having me today as well.
Susie, we've come across each other over the years, but I'd love to learn a little bit about yourself and where your career started and your interest in wellness.
Well, it's been a long one. I think I might be one of the few that's been in this for the longest time because my entire career, and that's many decades, 4 decades or so, has been started out in spa and then wellness. So I've been there, I have traveled around the world. I have visited thousands of spas and I've done research and study and been involved in many different ways. So I guess interest started because I was very active myself in physical activity and, being a bit of more of an athlete. And then just found that the environment of what we called spa back in the 70s, because we weren't using the term wellness, was a great environment to see how people would come to a place and be transformed within, at the time I was at the Golden Door, that's where my career started, within a week. People would be so much, look better, feel better. And, seeing that was very, very exciting. And then, I did a variety of things in the spa arena. I also went and did my MBA. And so I've added a lot of interest in research to the whole field. And now I, head up the Global Wellness Summit. We've been doing, this is our 18th summit. This year we'll be in Scotland. We started in New York, have been all over the world. And the Institute, which is the nonprofit, has done a lot of research that we have given to the world. We don't charge for it. And I think it's really helped build the momentum and the understanding of the entire wellness ecosystem.
So what inspired you then to look at the whole wellness side? And when did you notice sort of a shift to wellness travel?
Well, I think when we did our summit it was actually in New Delhi in 2013, that was the first time we came out with a report called Wellness Tourism. And back then we weren't really putting the terms wellness and tourism together. That was but the research that our researchers did showed that was growing faster than tourism. And I think that was a real inspiration because also, we could see there was a lot of appetite and yet it hadn't been defined. So by defining it and then educating people, it started the ball rolling. And that was very exciting to see. And India was a particularly interesting place to introduce wellness tourism because they already had medical tourism and wellness tourism. It was one of the few countries that had the distinction, medical for medical reasons, lots of doctors involved. But wellness with India, it was, people going for meditation or yoga or Ayurveda. It was a distinction. And people could see it in India where they might not have been able to see it in other countries. But that's all changed.
So to tell me, that's an interesting point. Tell me when does wellness move into that sort of medical tourism? What's the balance there? What are you seeing in terms of products and trends?
Yeah, so our researchers made a real distinction, and that was very helpful because, the medical tourism set, there's a lot of rules and regulations, and then there's the wellness tourism, which is not so doctor dependent at all. And when you see the difference in size, medical tourism is very small compared to wellness tourism. Because wellness tourism, people can go over and over again. There's such a variety, and there's not the regulation where in medical, there's so much, there is such a narrow path there. So wellness tourism, and we've kept it distinct even to this day. And that's what's been very helpful for people, because you can include so many things in wellness tourism that you wouldn't necessarily include in medical tourism. However, one of the trends today is that there's a lot more medical coming into wellness. For example, with longevity. Longevity is a major trend that we're seeing. A lot of people talking about longevity, and longevity often has some diagnostics along with it. And so now we see some of that coming in, but we still see them as very distinct, and the consumer looks at them distinctly. That's what's important. The consumer, they know very well they're either going on a wellness trip, or they're going to incorporate something with wellness, which we define as self-care, or they're going for medical, which is a very different thing that they're going to be participating in.
Okay, so you mentioned about longevity, and I was going to ask you, what new data have you come across that is insightful, interesting, groundbreaking in this area?
Well, first of all, I think that it would be interesting for the audience to know that the global wellness economy is now a $5.6 trillion economy. That's very large. And, that has been growing. But it's projected to be 8.5 in 2027. So the numbers are huge. And what we see in particular in wellness tourism, because this global wellness economy consists of 11 different sectors. So there's physical activity, there's healthy eating, there's beauty, there's wellness tourism, wellness real estate, mental wellness, spas, mineral springs. So there's, 11 different sectors. The wellness tourism sector is the one so many people are interested in, and one that I really love. Right now, it's a $651 billion industry, and it is growing quite fast. Now, of course, things went down during the pandemic because people were not traveling internationally. But the way it's bouncing back is quite huge. Because, one thing, Jonathan, one of the fastest ways for countries to spark their tourism again was through wellness tourism, because people were interested after the pandemic, especially after the pandemic, in their wellness and in their self-care. And countries also have unique assets that can attract people. In Thailand, there's Thai massage. In Japan, there's onsens. Every country, India has its, unique, China, Middle East, it's fascinating for people to experience some indigenous practices. And nowadays, what's happened is that almost all travel has some wellness to it.
Yes, I can see that. And you're speaking on the FHS program on the structural change that's gone on with wellness. And I think this is what you're talking about, isn't it? How it's changed, particularly since COVID as well. Can you just maybe elaborate a little bit about how it's evolving?
Yes, in fact, yesterday we came out with a new toolkit, and there was one difference in wording. Instead of wellness tourism, our researchers called it wellness in tourism, because that's one of the changes is that, we used to define wellness tourism as people going on a trip for either a primary wellness experience or a secondary. The primary would be someone's going on a trip specifically for their wellness experience. They would go to a destination spa. They would go to a yoga retreat. It was all about wellness. The secondary part, which is much larger, is people going on any trip, but doing something in the wellness space. That's, of course, very, very large. The change now, and this is, quite new, and that's why I get excited about what Saudi can do, because they're kind of the future now, so they get to start thinking differently right from the beginning, is that putting wellness in all tourism. So it's every traveler, and it's the wellness of the place. So it's not just you're going to a place for your wellness, but people care about how well are the people at the place where I'm going, and also, of course, the environment. How well is the environment? So it's a broader way of looking at wellness travel now.
So really looking at the community as well, and the wellness of the community, the staff, and so it's more of a holistic sort of thought process when people go on travel. And are they actually making decisions yet when they travel, when consumers travel? Are they looking for and trying to see, okay, I'm going on a holiday, what is the wellness element? I mean, it used to be just the spa side, didn't it? You want a nice spa, but how is that evolving?
It's a little bit like what I think happened with the environmental and the green movement. In the beginning, people just traveled and, did they really care about the health? It took a while for people to be educated about if they are doing damage to the environment, for example, when they're traveling to a certain place. And then they started caring about, is this brand, doing something positive for the environment? And that's what's happening with wellness. I think people are beginning to ask those questions. In some ways, you can feel it. If you go to a place that is unhealthy in terms of the air quality, for example, people are definitely choosing not to go there. So that's just one example where people are looking at, how is the air quality? Do I want to spend time there? And so there's certainly a move towards that. And, is it overpopulated? Is there over-tourism? That sort of thing people are beginning to look at. But I would say people are very interested in their personal well-being first, but more and more, the other aspects are coming into play. And I think going in the future, it'll be much more.
Yes, if you look at the capital cities, particularly in the developing markets, the air quality is appalling, and I assume that people are more aware of that now. So perhaps looking for brands that's going to do, hotel brands, for example, who are going to do something, wellness brands that are going to do something about that, and provide the appropriate system in the hotel to make sure that the room air quality is good.
Absolutely. And the good news is that, and this is another trend, the technology is getting better and better. So there's more things that can be done. So that's encouraging. But, and there's more awareness of health factors. Water is another thing, but air quality is actually one of the top things people are looking for. So, yeah.
Interesting. So if we're looking ahead, we've seen a big transformation take place, and particularly from COVID, I think we've all seen that. But if we're looking now down the next 10 years, where is it all leading to with wellness and what should, because it takes a while for these, destinations, these hotels to be developed. What should they be looking for with your data that you're providing?
Well, I think that in general, people should be aware that eventually all travel will be wellness travel. People want to feel better after they travel. And so creating experiences that, that touch people, where they feel better after the trip than before. Years ago, in my life, decades ago, you'd need a vacation after your vacation because you stayed out late, you ate too much, and so on. That's no longer what the consumer wants. So I think in general, going to a healthy destination, doing things that are healthy, but still, enjoying yourself, that's a trend. 10 years is such a long part forward. However, there are some trends that I think, and I'd be happy to share them with you, that I think people should look at that, will be helpful. One is healthcare and self-care. That's something we learned with the pandemic. Healthcare was very important in the pandemic. People, we needed the medical, the vaccine and all the doctors, but it was very clear that it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And what was needed was self-care. People needed to do their part in not having, obesity or the chronic diseases. The people that were in better shape did better through the pandemic. And that made a difference subsequent to the pandemic. People now realize they want to take better care of themselves. So this whole idea of self-care, that is accelerating. Longevity, one of our trends this year, we call longevity has longevity. People want to live longer, but healthy longer. So it's more about health span, not lifespan. People don't want to become 100 and be, have the last 20 years not be healthy. So health span. And because of technology, there's more things that can be done. So people can, find out earlier if they have a propensity to a disease, et cetera. So the whole longevity piece. And then I think, mental health is becoming more and more important. And that's where I think travel also is such a great plus, where people are learning things but paying attention to mental health, sleep health. And then there's a few specifics, which if you're interested, we can talk about for, Saudi and the Middle East. But in general, I would say it's about health span and self-care and prevention. Finally, governments are now looking at the fact that it's a lot less expensive to prevent disease or, chronic diseases, especially those kinds that are preventable, than to, wait until someone is ill and then have to do all the expense of trying to, mitigate problems.
Yeah, no, exactly. Where do you see business travel fitting into wellness?
We see that now business travel, that's part of the secondary wellness traveler. More and more people are incorporating some wellness aspects into their business travel. So the business traveler wants to also stay healthy on the road. So the business traveler is no longer, just, wanting to have drinks at night and, overeating and so on. That's going to be out. That's going to be old. People want to stay healthy. So the things that are available, whether it's fitness or healthy options for eating, and especially healthy sleep, the business traveler is interested in that too. Plus, there's a lot of people doing both the leisure kind of thing where they're doing business and leisure together. And we see that continuing.
No, definitely. Yeah, we're certainly seeing that with what we do as well, putting on more experience as well for your clients, giving the opportunity to see something they hadn't seen before. They attend our events. On the whole Middle East front and the Saudi front, how do you see it transitioning? I mean, we hear a lot about sort of the wellness focus that they have, the heritage focus that they have, but how do you see it in more of a global context as well? And what can we learn from them, and what can they learn from what's happened globally?
Well, I mean, what's happening in Saudi is, obviously very exciting, newsworthy. We're reading about these fantastic projects. And I have to say and applaud the fact that they have identified that wellness is a major piece of it. So they're starting already with the really great idea that, wellness should be incorporated. I think they have the opportunity to do some new things that have not been done. And that will take some creativity. And I see a little bit of that. I think, there could be more, because you want to attract people to that particular country for the wellness experience. Certainly the fact that there's a lot of high end and luxury, that's appealing. But one example, I think, Clinique La Prairie is opening in Saudi. I think that's actually a very good idea, because that is a brand that has a lot of credibility in the, technology, I should say in the scientific longevity arena. And it's, of course, luxury. But having that in a very good way in Saudi, that's going to get attention. And that is a good direction, in my view, as one thing. But of course, there's lots of things happening. I see a few other opportunities. One that I would love to see happen is, I also know that Saudi is very interested in sports. And sports is something that has been a bit siloed from wellness in the past, but that's changing because what's happening in the wellness and spa arena is that they've gotten very involved with recovery. So recovery is a segment just in the last few years where there are more experiences like hyperbaric or IVs or ice baths or cryotherapy, things that athletes were using to do recovery and preparation for their athletic kinds of things. And that's now part of many spas and wellness centers. So recovery is part of it. And so now the elite athlete or any athlete is finding that being part of a spa or wellness center kind of works for an athlete. So I think there's a lot of opportunity because it's not just about elite athletes. It can be about the wannabe athlete. It could be about spectators. So I think that's kind of an interesting opportunity to see what could be maybe done. Plus, it's also something that could engage the domestic market. And I know, obesity and, chronic disease, diabetes and so on are issues in the Middle East. So engaging young people, that's a plus as well. So I think that's kind of a interesting opportunity.
Excellent. And Susie, in the hotel industry specifically, what is it that we need to be doing more of in order to attract the growth of wellness tourism?
Well, I think that what I would say, and I've mentioned this many times at the Lausanne Hotel School where I'm on the advisory board, there needs to be attention to the workers in the hospitality industry and their wellness. That has not been the case in the past. It just has not been the culture. That would help a lot when, there are a few places, but very few in the world where a hotel or resort really does a great job taking care of their employees. But it makes a huge difference. One example actually is, and I don't know, Jonathan, if you're familiar with the Breakers in Palm Beach, Florida. They're, kind of my poster child of an amazingly progressive and successful program of wellness for their team. And they have been doing this for 12 or 14 years. And it has had such a positive effect that they have such little turnover. And so they can really measure the value of not having turnover. And, you can feel it when you're at the Breakers. You can feel that the people are happy to be there. They've involved their families in wellness. There's education, but there's more than that. They do volunteer work. They have a lot of, interaction and community, which is an important thing for health. So I would say, in answer to your question, have the brands and hotels, if they could begin doing more serious structure with the health of their employees, that would be a really great start because that would then trickle down.
Yeah, no, exactly. And we've got a couple of sessions on that actually at FHS, just looking at staff accommodation and the data behind that, because it's incredibly important that we make sure that we have appropriate and the necessary accommodation for staff going forward, particularly in these growing markets, which we need to attract good people into our industry as well. So, but really, really good point you've made there. Well, listen, Susie, thank you so much for joining this podcast. It was really nice just to catch up, learn a little bit more about this whole area, which is certainly new to me, and I'm looking forward to learning much more about it going forward. And again, having you participate as one of our speakers, you're on a couple of sessions during the conference from the 29th of April to the 1st of May. So very much look forward to seeing you there. I know this is a market that's exciting and dynamic for you, and I look forward to seeing you there and introducing you to my friends in that market as well.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. I'm excited about what's happening in Saudi, and I'm just really looking forward to learning more and, if there's any way I can contribute, I really think that, people wanting to be healthy, there's such a great opportunity to be very creative there. So, great. And I'll see you there in not too long, what is it? A couple of months?
No, 4 weeks.
Oh,
4 weeks.
Gosh, just 1 month.
We've got Easter need, and then we're there. Anyway.
Okay, very good. Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you so much, Susie.
Thank you.